Welcome back to NOLA Motorsport Park, live here high above from the drone. The perfect spot, really. I wish I could get up there and have a seat up there because you get the best view up there. It really has transformed motor racing, because to see it from above, from a commentator's point of view, is just a different perspective that we never had before. Now, talking of something completely different, how about this? Let's get radical. And let's take a look at John Field, who is one of the Radical competitors. Had a great day yesterday. And it's the Radicals' third race of the weekend, so they should be dialed in by now. They started off in inclement weather, which is not often how you run a Radical, because you kind of want the best weather possible. These are powerful machines, lots of downforce, varying in capacity of engine, but everybody happy. As you can see, we've got 3 categories. Platinum, which is the most powerful, and that's what you're looking at right now with Alan Miller in the 500. Then you've got the Pro 1500 class, which is, if you like, the big class, or at least the Premier class, has the most entries in it, and that seems to be the choice du jour for most of the competitors. Danny Chelsky there, having a good weekend so far. He's been right at the thick end of some great racing in both those races that have been before. And then in the Pro 1340, the smaller cars, or the SRXX, as we call them. And really, it's a matter of horsepower. The cars are very similar, and it's interesting to see, actually, on a course like this with a long straight, the big horsepower cars gain advantage, obviously. But because they've got the big horsepower, they've also got heavier engines, which means in the slower corners they lose time, and the quicker, more nimble 1500s catch up. And so you do get quite an interesting battle. They don't stagger them, they put them all together, and that's part of the game here, is that you don't know who you're going to come across. You could be fighting with somebody who's in your class, or you could be fighting with somebody who's not in your class, but you're struggling to get past them because they may well be just a better driver, a quicker driver, a more experienced driver, or they may well just be a little bit slower. As you can see high above the bayou, and we are just about 25 minutes from New Orleans. And the World Finals last year was held in Las Vegas. They haven't announced where the World Finals will be this year, but that's an exciting prospect, because there's 14 Radical Championships around the world currently, and some 3,000 of these cars littered all over, I say littered, but all over the world racing. Some 1,200 of them here in North America. So we've got here on the grid some entries from Canada. They're going to be racing in Canada later this year. They are going to be spending some time with IndyCar, which is going to be great. Very prestigious event to be with IndyCar. So they're going to be on some very prestigious circuits and at some very prestigious events throughout the season. So kicks it all off here at NOLA, and it's a good place to kick it off because you've got the time, you've got the less of this stress, if you will, than an IndyCar race weekend where you're probably going to be in and out very quickly. And then that Canada race on a street circuit, I think that's the first time Radicals have been to a street circuit, and that is going to be a new part of the Radical history now in its 25th year. And am I right in saying, as I'm joined by Tom again, Tom Drewer, all of these cars made in Peterborough in England?
Indeed, yes, all of them typically flown over in the bellies of commercial aeroplanes, whether that's Virgin or British Airways, but all of them coming over at around about 60 to 70% of global sales of Radical sports cars end up in the US and Canada. So it's a huge, huge market for us, and I think the competitive nature of this series shows why. These cars just fantastic, not only for this national level competition, but of course, if you want to start your racing career, whether that's at a SCCA local level, NASA Unlimited, they're also eligible for, or in fact just a country club racetrack. So a lot of these guys have started their careers at Spring Mountain, Autobahn, Apex in Arizona, Atlanta Motorsport Park, and then stepping up to full-blown national competition and a number of drivers racing the world with Radical, whether that's in Europe, the Middle East, Asia, Australia. And so, yeah, we're delighted to have so many wonderful customers, and they obviously like the product, very loyal. Some of our customers on their 6th, 7th and 8th Radical now.
And I'm guessing that they last forever too. I mean, you can rebuild them, you can retune them and make them able to run for many, many years. And really, the point is, it's a simple car at heart, and therefore they should go for some time.
It's spec racing at its finest, and that means that you really still can turn up with a car that's 10 years old and be pretty competitive. So the fantastic thing is that from time to time we'll see people with older RS SR3s and things, and they turn up and they can be mixing it up at the front of the field. Of course, the newer cars always slightly quicker. And speaking of newer cars, you'll notice a few out there. The new SR3 XXR. You can tell the cars because they've got some big fins on the back of the engine covers. And the number 19 of Nick Persing, who just went through screen there, is one of them, as well as the 61 of Mike Anzaldi, and the 65, the black 65 coming towards us now, Dave Tweedley, also in a brand new car, just delivered, just in time. In fact, they flew into Orlando on Tuesday and were immediately trucked over to NOLA Motorsports Park.
Any drivers you want to point out? This is your show, so to speak, and over the weekend I've got to learn about a few of them. But it's such an eclectic group of youngsters, experienced drivers, young women coming through. There's really an opportunity for anybody from 15-year-old to 55-year-old.
Yeah, well, we heard from Greg Gorski on the podium yesterday. He's 54 years old and mixing it up with these 16, 15
and loving
year olds and loving it. And that's what it's all about. I mean, you're only as good as your competition, aren't you? So for everyone out there, they just want to race the best people to become the best drivers. And look, I think when I look down the order, the one to watch perhaps today is the 17, Aurora Strauss.
What's her background in terms of getting to this point?
Well, very fortunate in the sense that her father was part of the consortium that created Monticello Motor Club. So she was very lucky to get behind the wheel at a relatively young age. And Ari Strauss, big proponent of radical racing cars, has always owned SR3s and SR8s in the past. So she got behind the wheel, a little bit of a radical early on, but then went into some sports car racing, has been doing tremendously well, whether it's IMSA, SRO. And I just think that last year she showed her class by coming in, gaining a number of podium positions in the opening round that she competed in at Watkins Glen. She then went on to take 2 wins in the final races of the season at Sonoma. And she struggled a little bit for pace here this weekend after almost putting it on pole in the wet conditions on Friday. So I think she's one to watch in this race, because I know that she's been working hard with One Motorsports to find some pace in the number 17. Another one to look out for perhaps today is the 61 of Mike Anzaldi in that new XXR. He's a former SR3 1340 champion, stepped up to the 1500s, and he certainly knows how to wheel one of these radical machines.
Let me ask you that before you go on. So stepping up from the 1300 to the 1500, is that the progression that you advise for young drivers coming up and learning?
Yeah, I think the 1340s is a great place to start. The reason being is that the 1340cc engine's a little bit less stress than the 1500, and it just means in terms of value for money, if you like, you can go testing, you can do a little bit more between rebuilds. So it is a great place to start. Obviously, also being the lowest horsepower, it's a little less forgiving, which really trains you to carry the road speed mid-corner. It gives you... it teaches you good habits. And
like that.
So we often see the guys that do start in 1340, whilst not necessary, certainly carry good habits and typically some good craft through the ranks. But I think the big story from yesterday was the fact that Robert Soroka managed to be second fastest in the Pro 1500s. And so he's leaped up the grid, if you will. He starts second in class, 6th overall. But it'll be interesting to see if the 94 young Robert Soroka from Canada can take it to Danny Dashelski, who's been just in a class of his own in the 88.
Yeah, really impressed with Danny yesterday. He, like you see him weaving from side to side in that all light blue car, you can't miss it. And he just was in a world of his own at one point, and no one could touch him in that second race. And then he was right in the thick of it in the first race as well. So he got a lot of TV time, that's for sure.
I think the other person that will be looking to make amends today is Alan Miller in the 500 Blue Marble machine. He actually, the reason we didn't see him in yesterday afternoon's race, I found out later, he broke an axle. Amazingly, One Motorsport ran back to the paddock, got a new axle, put a new axle in that car. Wow. He went back out, managed to bank some fast laps as he started to carve his way throughout the field, and that's why he's starting from P3 today. But here we go. John Field in the 37 will lead this field to the green, and we'll see who gets a jump. Yesterday, he was caught napping while Louis Schreiber got a great start.
Well, Schreiber's there again as they come out of the loop. The safety car goes off. John Field in the red and grey lines up in pole. Schreiber right there. We're watching for Miller as well. But also watch the 1500s. They got a good start yesterday, and watch out for Danny Dashelski in that all-blue 88.
Oh, there's some bit of commotion at the back of the field. There's someone rolling on early and then having a big lock-up and a big pop early by the 09 of Alain Dersey. He looks like he's side-by-side with Al Miller as the 4 SR10s at the front of the field head down into turn 1. So far clean at the green.
Yep, and it is Dashelski going through on the 1500 Pros to get the good clean start. Field, though, leads. And good clean start for all the Platinum men. And good Dersey, as you say, jinked out very early on. I hope that wasn't too early. But Miller in second place at the moment.
Now, it looks like the person who's got a cracking start is young Austin Riley, second in Pro 1500 at the moment. That's an awesome start for him. So whilst Dashelski's got a mouthful, if you will, of the 09 of Alain Dersey, behind him, Austin Riley's rocketed it up.
36 minutes in all, so plenty of racing to come from the Radicals. This is their third race here at round 1 of the North American Championship. And we've had some cracking racing, and already the field's starting to spread out as somebody's got some smoke going on in the back there. Let's hope that's not Terminal, but midfield, I don't know who it was.
That's the number 94, I'm pretty sure, of Robert Soroka, who we mentioned had done an outstanding job with his lap times in yesterday's race. So that's bad luck for him on this opening round. It looks like another big lockup. No, that's rear bodywork, and hopefully it's not going to come down.
He's had a touch on the left rear for sure.
Now, I'm not too worried about that in terms of he is coming into pit lane though, so he's worried about it. Obviously, I don't think we were going to lose a piece of bodywork, but the big fear is you're going to cut down that Hankook tyre. And Soroka, knowing that it's a long championship, just coming into pit lane early to fix that. It also looked like someone was following him in there too. I think that might have been Reed Stewart in the 27.
Louis Schreiber, though, moving up to second place behind John Field after that long straight again. There you see it. Schreiber in second, getting ahead of Miller. Dersey still fourth. And then Dashelski in fifth place. And the man you're looking at now, Riley, in sixth position at the moment.
Now, we haven't mentioned what this race has that the other two haven't, and that's a mandatory pit stop. So 15 minutes into this race, Bo Barfield will tell the starter stand to open the pit window, and then we'll see who blinks, who tries the undercut, who stays out in fresh air, and all drivers will have to make a stop. It's a 60-second delta between the pit inboard and the pit outboard. It's going to feel like an eternity because pit in is right at the start of that pit lane entry.
And how long do they have to stay stationary?
Well, it's up to the teams, but the delta is 60 seconds between the two boards.
Right.
So I think it's off the top of my head around about 15 seconds. It's the stationary time here.
I bet that feels like an age when you're doing it.
Oh, it's absolutely horrible. You're coming in from being on song around this circuit, and then all of a sudden have to woe it down and just sit there quietly while everyone whizzes by on the main straightaway. And of course, you're just hoping that your in-lap and out-lap have been good enough. I think what's going to be crucial at this circuit is that long approach into the pit lane. Who's conservative and who perhaps bites off a little bit more. Of course, all at 40 mile an hour, but still easy to lose a few tenths.
Yeah, and if you're unfamiliar with this sort of pit stop strategy, if you will, you may have watched Formula One where they change the tyres, and that's usually why they're coming in, because they're not putting fuel in. Here, it's more a strategy. They're just going to keep the car stationary. They won't change the tyres, won't put any fuel in. They'll just sit there, and the idea is to get it the timing right. So if you're in traffic, if you're trying to fight with somebody that you don't want to fight with, and you're stuck behind them and you can't get past, that could be a time to pit. Or you just go hell-bent for leather while your opponent is in the pits and try to gain that sort of overtake from him in the pits.
Absolutely. The Radical Cup is a breeding ground for drivers and teams, for that matter, looking to make a move into the upper echelon of sports car racing. So we want to prepare these guys, whether that's the drivers behind the wheel or the crew members, to remain calm under these circumstances. And of course, pit stops is a big part of sports car racing.
We were looking at Ken Savage there, 12th overall, and he had a good run yesterday. I think he got a win yesterday as well, didn't he?
He did indeed. So a maiden victory for Ken Savage, and for that matter, G-Tech Motorsport, who's come into the series this year. And Kent with those green stripes indicating he is leading the 1340 class. So a strong start for him. And again, it is the senior Bacon, Seth Bacon, who is second at the moment in Pro 1340. As under pressure is Al Miller in the 500 machine from Alain Dersey, who's really found his form, stepping up from the Pro 1500 ranks into the Platinum class and into that 435 brake horsepower, 380 foot-pound torque SR10. We call it the torque monster, and it's unbelievable. In fact, Williams, the 57, Wayne Williams, said that he's driven a lot of high horsepower sprint cars. He said it's just the same feeling. Awesome power under the right foot, and always difficult to lay that power down onto the tarmac using these hand-cooked tyres.
You know, you mentioned the Bacons. I saw a great picture on Racer Magazine of Seth and is it Chase?
Chase. Yeah.
Chase Bacon together, looking so happy after yesterday's race, and it was up and down for both of them. They both had a good run, but at different times, and they look so both happy in that picture. But if you want to catch up, racer.com with all the news on the Radicals and what they get up to. Where are you up to next? Where are you going next?
Well, we're out to Barber Motorsport Park with IndyCar, so that's going to be an exciting one. And really looking forward to 3 next events with IndyCar, and then off to Dakota. And then, of course, ending the year with the season finale of IndyCar at Laguna Seca. So it's a big year for these guys, and we're really expecting some big fields. Now, what's interesting, we've seen the top 2 in the Platinum class break away a little bit. Yeah. Schreiber seems to be matching Field's pace at the moment. Miller can't seem to match it. And we've got Wayne Williams, curse of the commentator, we were just speaking about the 57. And he's managed to beach it on the curb.
That's on the track as well, isn't it?
That is, and we just wonder whether this is going to bring out our safety car. We haven't seen it yet. Hopefully, I'm sure Bo will be...
he's got it going. Good man.
Good man, indeed. And so it remains green here at NOLA Motorsports Park. I think the Radical, and I'm sure I'm going to curse this now, I think we're the only series to go green in all our races so far.
Good point.
So some high caliber driving from the Radical Cup. And on screen, Nick Persing talking about high caliber. This young man's been doing a sterling job in F4 and in the Radicals this weekend. and he seems to have found some pace. And I mentioned Aurora Strauss is carving her way through the field, so she's starting to hone in on the back of the 19. Crucially, she's passed teammate Greg Gorski, and Austin Riley, I have a feeling, is going to be under all sorts of pressure for second place in Pro 1500, because it's Dushelski out in front, then Riley with Persing honing in. Then we're back to Strauss, and Gorski's not far behind either. And Zaudi's in the thick of it too.
So great racing here with our 6 laps gone, 28 minutes to go. You mentioned Nick Persson. I talked to him on the grid of the FR as he stepped into the car, quite literally, after stepping out of his Radical. Didn't even have time to go to the podium. He was that busy. And I said, how are you doing this? He said, I've been working out extra hard in the winter, quite literally, because I knew this would be happening at this particular event. But I'm up for it. And here is Strauss. We just saw her. There she is in the 17.
Yeah. So Aurora Strauss has found some pace, and it was confirmation. We could see him just coming out of pit lane, the 27 of Reed Stewart. So he was the other one, I think, who may have got into the back of the 94 of Robert Soroka on that opening tour. And Aurora Strauss in some good fresh air. You can see the brand new halo on her car. So that cockpit safety structure, new to Radicals this year, and a number of cars running it. And the driver's saying it does change the handling characteristics just a little bit. Obviously you'd expect that, because a little bit more structure tying in all the bars of the chassis. But the team's liking it, and of course the driver's liking that added protection.
Absolutely, yeah, it's become the modern thing, no question about it. And since it was introduced in single-seater racing, it has become more and more popular, and the FIA have tried to increase the coverage of that halo-type equipment, which has proved so vital in both IndyCar and single-seaters around the world. Now, now the gap has gone right up, or has, hang on, something's changed here, because Miller's now second.
Yeah, so Louis Schreiber has dropped back. There he is on screen. The 111 of Louis Schreiber has fallen back to 4th, so some kind of issue. Now that's going to be interesting, because that also is going to check Dushelski up a little bit, so Riley might capitalize. 24, the smoke buddy of Greg Gorski, he'll be licking his lips as well. Perhaps this will condense the top 4 of the 1500s. They are running line astern now.
Strauss coming under pressure from Gorski bit by bit as well. There's only a second between them. We're watching that battle. The 24 just behind the 17 of Strauss, and she dives into that right-hander, and she's got Gorski now getting ever closer, but she is trying to catch Persing, of course, who is after Riley. Now, is this the first of the pit stops, or is this a problem?
I think this is
the car
too
that was
early.
Turned around. Yeah, this is the car that got turned around, Reed Stewart, yeah. So he did go onto the grass, and they're just checking the balance of the car, I think.
Yeah, I think it's turning into a long test session for Reed Stewart. Of course, he started the race, so he will collect some valuable points. And at the end of the day, it's a long championship. So if they can get the car out there, you never know what's going to happen to another competitor. Speaking of which, Louis Schreiber looks a little bit stricken in that 111 machine. The car looks okay, but the pace is not there at the moment. And Dushelski will be getting worried, because Schreiber's going to have more pace down the straight. Dushelski's undoubtedly a little bit quicker in perhaps the lighter, more balanced car, if you will. So Dushelski's going to fall back into the clutches of that wonderful liveried number 20, Austin Riley, racing with Autism Machine, and a person closing in there as well. So it's getting a little bit spicy here down in Creole country.
Yeah, no kidding. Whether we get to about turn 6, you might be right about what you were saying about Dushelski, because he's going to be under pressure for sure from Riley and Persing. And meanwhile, Strauss and Gorski in a real good battle as well. Here comes your leader. Sorry, here comes the number 3. That's Bacon, excuse me.
And I think he is the leader now in Pro 1340. You're absolutely right. So a change in position there. Seth Bacon taking the lead ahead of the 5 of Ken Savage. And I suspect we should be inside the pit stop window now.
Yeah, we're getting there, aren't we? So, like you said, 15 minutes into the race, they've got to take a mandatory pit stop when they choose to take it. And when does that window close? With 10 minutes to go?
25 minutes in.
Okay.
So, yes, so about 15 minutes to go, and we're going to be looking good here. It's going to be a little bit tricky for us up here in the booth because the order's undoubtedly going to change, but I think what you're going to see is either teams electing to hang out and hope that there is a full course caution during this window, because it's a bit of a gamble to come in early. Of course, you don't want to come in too late and get a penalty.
Yeah, I guess what you really hope is that you can start coming into the pit lane just as they call out a safety car or whatever. But I don't know how the rules work on that, but it would be useful for you.
You can certainly, and there we go. So there was an early stop, and that was Wayne Williams.
So he's going to have to come in and do his mandatory pit stop after this now, isn't he?
No, I think that
still counts?
is in the window.
Okay.
That should be in the window because we're 23 minutes remaining. So we should be okay. So we're starting to see cars peel in.
Yeah, I can see him in the background, yeah.
And I think a lot of the 1500s matching each other as John Field's coming out. So he's taken his stop. So Miller is in the lead of this race, but it's really going to come down to how Field plays out. Now, he crucially got ahead of the 94 of Soroka there. So Field in relative fresh air, and he'll be making as much if he can of that, because he's got to be certain to get not caught out. Robert Burgess on screen there, team principal of Radical Canada, just making sure that the pit stop's going to plan. They are free to work on these cars in these pit stops, but honestly, unless there's something fundamental, the teams are just going to try and be calm, count down the seconds and get that delta right.
So John Field has already done his pit stop and therefore is trying to catch up. Dersey now picks up the lead because Miller has come in, I think, and Schreiber moves to second place. So it's all change here, but that's what we expect with the pit stops, and then it should all shuffle out, and then we'll see who's where, because now the traffic does come into play, because as you shuffle, what you don't want is to be stuck in traffic at a crucial time when you want to be making time up on those having to stop.
That's right. If you think about Formula One, even with all their telemetry and technology, they still often get it wrong where those cars come out. These teams don't have that luxury. So it really is a bit of a lottery, but you can see cars streaming into pit lane. And so now we're going to have the deck of cars get shuffled. Persing's now running third, so into the pit lane. Obviously, Dushelski has come. And some cars are going to get held up by others just a little bit in pit lane. Undoubtedly a little bit frustration and all of those sorts of things. Of course, for the driver, it's an opportunity to reset, but you're out of your rhythm.
Yeah.
So once you go back out on track, you've got to regain composure. And
all the running temperatures have changed. The tires have changed. The cars changed. Yeah, there's definitely, as we see the 94 in the pits, that's exactly what's going on. You've got to get back, both the car and the human, back up to running temperature, if you like.
And you can see there, they're just making a small adjustment to the pressures on the Hankook tyres. Robert Soroka getting some advice there from Richard Yin and Ryspec Racing. They're holding the car because otherwise that was going to be an unsafe release, and they're going to be...
And that is going to be an unsafe release, surely.
Well, that was very, very close, wasn't it? And Soroka getting up to speed in front of that car, so they did seem to work it out. Luckily, a transition lane in here, and Soroka being pretty smart. Now, what's happened to car 5? It almost looked like at the end of pit lane he stopped. Now, that's going to be interesting because that's not really permitted by the regulations. It'd be interesting to see if Bo Barfield picks up on that. It looks like he came to a crawl.
Yeah, he did.
He wasn't holding anyone else up. He may get away with that. There's a little bit of damage on the front of that car too. The dive plane on the front of that 5. So Ken Savage in all sorts of strife here. But we'll wait and see. Now, look at Field. He's back in the lead. and Miller, it appears, has come out, shuffled down to 4th. So Dursey could be the winner out of these pit stops. Up to 2nd place is Elaine Dursey in the 09.
Yeah, this is going to get interesting because it's hard to work out because we haven't seen each and every pit stop, so we're not quite sure if everybody's taken it yet. But yeah, it's starting to shuffle back into play now as each and everybody takes their pit stops. Looking high above the NOLA circuit at turn 6. Starting to become another beautiful day as it was yesterday here. They had a practice in the rain. That would have been an eye-opener for you guys early in the weekend.
It was a big eye-opener for a lot of these drivers, and in fact both Seth and Jace Bacon had never driven these cars in the wet. So they starred. I mean, I think it is a case of when you don't know, perhaps you go in a little blind and you push a little bit harder than you should perhaps. But of course, if it sticks, you gain that confidence early, and they did just that. John Field, all over the curb, and you can see him working at the tiller.
Yeah.
Trying to gather that car up. And he is back in the lead of this race now. So it appears we have had a shuffle for position. So Dursey has picked up 2nd place in that round of pit stops. Interestingly enough, I think Riley may have taken the lead in 1500 over Dushelski.
Ah. Well, is this Dursey coming up here in the orange?
That is Dursey. So Miller has got back ahead of Dursey.
Right.
But Riley is definitely ahead of Dushelski on track.
Yep,
so
you're absolutely
Riley
right.
in car 20, the first time, I think, almost this weekend. Well, certainly since that great battle between Dushelski and Persing in race 1, that we've had a different leader in a Pro 1500.
So good stuff. And we've still got 17 minutes to go because once they all shuffle out, then it's the run to the flag, obviously. And we're looking at the 09 of Dursey.
And Dursey, he'll be hoping to really hold on to that 3rd place. A final step of the podium. He's going to have Louis Schreiber in the 111. Using all the exit curb and more as he pilots that 09 SR10 around the high speed right-hander sweepers here at NOLA.
There is Dushelski, as you mentioned, Riley in front of him.
Wow, so that's huge for Racing with Autism. They've managed to place their man in front of the 88 of Dushelski, who's definitely shown the pace. He's had the pace of all the drivers. Could have Riley been holding out? He's obviously put in a burner of an in-lap, a burner of an out-lap, and they've got the pit stop hopefully just right. Of course, if they haven't, they will be getting a penalty, but we'll assume all is well in the Racing with Autism camp.
Through goes the 37 of John Field, leading this race by some 6 seconds at the moment. Here comes the 2nd place Miller in the 500, Dursey right behind him. And then the first of the 1500s is Riley. There he is in that beautifully painted yellow and blue. And then comes the 88 of Dushelski.
I was just trying to look at some of these lap times to see whether I could decipher if Riley had made a short stop or not. But so far, I think he just may have made a better stop. It was certainly, based on just rough lap times, a 2-minute 27 lap for Austin Riley during his pit stop, and a 2:29 lap for Dushelski. So Dushelski certainly lost a couple of seconds there. We'll wait and see whether it was too short for the 20. I hope not, because this is great news for Racing with Autism and Austin Riley's 2023 campaign if he can pick up a win here.
Now, what we missed was the battle between Gorski and Strauss. Gorski getting past Strauss, and he's now up to 8th position and going in pursuit of Persing.
So the pit stops throwing the proverbial cat amongst the pigeons, and certainly mixing up the order. And talking about mixing up the order, this is Seth Bacon versus Jace Bacon.
Father and son going at it.
And father in front of son at the moment.
Oh, this is great.
I tell you what, the rivalry around the dinner table must be just amazing. And so far it's been the old man who's got 2 stripes on the board. He's picked up a couple of wins.
Yeah, payback is today, I reckon. I don't think Jason's going to hang back this time, especially after Dad was saying that he ran out of talent at one point yesterday.
Now, they are back ahead of the 5. So the 5 of Ken Savage, who we saw was slow in pit lane, has certainly dropped down the order in 1340, and that means that Kevin Poitras is now up into a podium place in the 1340 class.
Well, the 999 losing a bit of ground to Dad in that last complex there, but here they come down the main straight one more time.
And after having that spin, the 57 through screen there of Wayne Williams, our sprint car star, he said he just loved the car in the wet. It was like driving a sprint car, and he's still struggling a little bit to make the transition from the dirt track to the pavement in the dry. So there's Austin Riley's old car, the 73 of Kevin Poitras, bought the championship winning car. That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's just down to you then. And that is the car that took home the outright championship, and the car that really took Austin to he hasn't done it yet, but will take him to a race in England. And so the prize for winning the outright championship last year, a race in England, thanks to Radical Motorsport, we're excited to have him over there.
Oh, that'll be a great experience, yeah. I mean, to go back to the home of Radical, as it were, where I know how popular they are there too. The competition will be fierce.
Absolutely, and to have the chance to mix it up with the top drivers in the Haggerty Radical Cup United Kingdom, to represent North America, represent Canada in England will just be tremendous. Well, there we are, the leader, the outright leader, John Field, coming around, finding the back of the field. So Dan Decker in the 7, we haven't seen him until now, and it's because John Field is trying to put a lap on that Porsche Homage livery, one of the Cameron Racing cars, all the way from California. And John Field is reeling him in.
Yeah, you can see the gap from high above, just what he's got on 6 seconds. It's a mighty gap. And I don't think he's going to be held up, because once they get onto the straight after this complex, he should be able to blast back. Oh, what's going on here? On the grass.
Very wide and into the marbles and on the grass. And I think that's one of the faster SR10s. So who is it? We'll wait and see. And it's Dursey. That's disaster.
Oh.
Running second in class, or third in class, mind you, rather. He was vying for that final step of the podium. And that's meant that the 111 Louis Schreiber now has been elevated onto the final step. Riley now 4th overall. What an outstanding drive from the young man from Canada, our reigning champion and our reigning Pro 1340 driver as well. Oh, and there's some kind of issue with the 5 car of Ken Savage. It's all unraveling for a couple of drivers as we enter the final 10 minutes.
It's all happening, isn't it? Yeah, this is great stuff. Field now still leading, but Miller, Schreiber, and Riley and Chelsea continue their battle in 1500 Po. Persing's in that one, Gorski's in that one, Strauss is there one. Dursey's now dropped to 9th position after that little excursion onto the grass, the Platinum Man.
There's been 25 minutes of qualifying, a 40-minute race 1, a 40-minute race 2. We're now entering another 30 minutes on top of that. And I just wonder whether some of these drivers have used up some of their hand-cooked rubber around this racetrack.
Now, here's another look at it. You see, he locks up here going into 15 and then tries to go around the outside and just gets on the marbles, I think.
Yeah, I think he avoided the car in front, that white 1500, and then once he was on the marbles, that was all over Red Rover. So
there's your leader going through, John Field, 9 minutes to go.
And
Decker comes next, but he's at the back. And then there's your second place man in Platinum 500, Miller at the moment.
Miller having just a quiet, casual race in second place, doing the job to play rear gunner, if you will, for One Motorsports and John Field. Louis Schreiber now has to clear Dan Decker if he wants to have a run at the 500 in the final minutes of this race. Of course, in yesterday's race, it was the lap traffic that meant he couldn't have that final charge at John Field for the win. But the battle I almost want to get back to is Austin Riley. It looks by the timing charts, he's got a decent lead, about a second or so, nearly 2 seconds on Dushelski, I think, or at least a second and a half. And Persing also sort of in the mix, but he's got Gorski behind him. Strauss a little bit further back, and then we're back to Dursey and Zaudi having a strong run in the 61 machine. Then we're back to Jack Yang. And then the leaders in Pro 1340, who is now the young gun. You were right, the 999 of Jace Bacon is in front of the old man.
Yep, he's finally done it. I knew that payback would be coming, and he's going to try to make that stick. But don't count out the old man yet. He might have another go at this. There's still 7 minutes to go. But they are having a ball, father and son, and that is what racing's all about, especially in radicals. I think that's great.
Riley, crucially, with an out-of-class car, the car of Ken Savage, I think that is, between him and Dushelski. So that's good news. He'll be breathing a sigh of relief under the helmet there. And that's what's lovely about the multi-class racing.
Tell me about the LED lights. Is that for the more modern cars, or is that a distinction?
All of them are running LED lights. In fact, we'll have to have a word to the drivers, because in theory, they're all meant to be running them. But you can tell the variations of the cars.
Yeah.
So, yes, the later models having LED lights, and the different variations running those strips in different locations, so you can kind of tell they're generations of SR3s there. And Riley now popping out to pass Decker, just to put another car between himself and Dushelski, as Dushelski passed the 5 of Ken Savage. So just as Dushelski thinks, right, I've got some clear space between my rival, another back marker will play a role in this race.
But this is a good run from Austin Riley. He really is putting on a good show here.
It's an outstanding drive. Absolutely phenomenal.
Here's your leader. And the gap, some 7 seconds that you see here between Miller, who dives in now. That's what I'm talking about with those lights, is that you notice them more on those two cars than perhaps on some of the others. But
there's Austin with lights ablaze.
Yeah, no kidding. Now here comes Dushelski as well. He's got past Decker.
Yeah, so now there is clean air. Is there enough time?
Well, 5
Dushelski
minutes.
has shown he's got the pace, the raw talent, but has he got enough tyre left?
There's Dursey. He's now behind Strauss. He was the one who had that spin, of course, earlier on, still in 9th place ahead of Anzaldi.
We'll talk about pressure. Austin Riley all in front. Now, what's the replay here? Seeing a pass, or almost a pass, into the high-speed section.
You can see how spread out they all are now. You never know when you're going to come across another battle. And that's how we like it, spreading it right out and creating little pockets of radical battles.
It's amazing to think when you look across this beautiful shot. It looks like the track's out in the middle of Louisiana, but it's only 20 minutes away from all the action of New Orleans. And I tell you what, they've done a great job. And this is tight. Richard Gerosa in the 29, not giving an inch as he fights. And this has allowed Seth Bacon to have a go at his son in the Stussy car. And Seth Bacon can't do the job. on young Jace at the moment.
Yeah, I said he'd get another chance, and he's got it, because he's going to try to use this car ahead of both of them to try and come back at him. But this is excellent fun.
You can see in the brake ducts at the front of the 3 car, there's a fair bit of grass.
Yeah.
So I think Seth, after joshing around on the podium and winding his son up about making mistakes, has made a mistake on his own there. And that's what's caused that change of position.
Whoa, nice move by the youngster, and he's trying to make the effect of holding his father back here by getting a car between him, and that was a really good move.
And it was indeed. And it's hard to pick up which one is the bacon and which one is the 29 of Jerosha. So, okay, so it's Seth ahead there, I think, and then, yeah, Seth just going out of shot with the white on front of his car, and then it is Old Man Bacon. And then we're back to Richard Jerosha, who's running a 1500.
So 3 minutes to go. Field still leading as he has throughout most of this race in Platinum. And then Persing and Duchelski going for battle. And Persing trying to stay with Duchelski for the 1500 pros. Gorski going quick. Up to 6 now. Strauss up to 7.
Now, it's interesting. Couple of things here. I just saw a black flag.
Yeah.
There's also been a change in position. Austin Riley has dropped down right down the order. I think what's happened is Riley has had to serve a drive-through or a stop-go penalty. I think Duchelski has regained the lead
in 1500.
Yeah.
Look at this battle in Platinum.
Yeah, Louis Schreiber right on the back of India Miller, hunting down the 500 for
They've
second
got some
place.
traffic to deal with as well. This is great stuff.
This is, and Persing up to second in 1500. Gorski up to third. Strauss, could she come home with a podium? The 500 of Indy Miller defending hard as he comes up onto the back of the 73, who gets out the way, but chops back in front of Louis Schreiber. And again, the back mark is not on the side of Louis Schreiber. They're rightful to go through this high-speed S's, but it's a tough break for Louis Schreiber.
Yeah, and he's finally going to get through, I think, but you're right. He just held him up enough whereby the advantage was gained.
No, we haven't got the white flag yet. It's not
Still got another minute yet. So I guess they're going to let him do one more lap before the white flag.
Yeah, and I'm waiting to see who just came into pit lane.
No, there is the white flag for the leader, John Field. So through come the leaders.
No.
Oh, no, excuse me.
Do you know what's happened? John Field...
We missed... Yeah, he's gone.
Do you know what's happened? He's also been given a penalty. So he is short-stopped. Disaster for John Field. I wondered who that black flag was for, it was for Field. So Indy Miller has gone into the lead of this race, and now he's not fighting for second place, he's fighting for the win.
For the win.
You've got to think the red mist will be elevated under that visor in the 111 machine, because Louis Schreiber can also sniff a victory here at NOLA Motorsports Park.
What a grandstand finish we've got. Well, that was drama indeed. That black flag indeed for Field, who took his pit stop, and now this is the race for the win. Miller holding on there. Indy Miller trying to hold off Schreiber, and it's going to go right to the end. In 1500, Duchelski still third. Persing and Field does rejoin, but in 5th place now. So he's out of it, but will get third in Platinum. But who's going to win this one?
I tell you what, these two have come to blows before. There's a lot of love between them. In fact, Louis Schreiber was one of Al Miller's best men at his wedding just last year. But they've had some absolute fair dinkum battles on the racetrack. Some words afterwards. They race hard. Al Miller comes around the final couple of corners here. The white flag is out. It's going to have to be replaced in a minute, I think, and it does. Indy Miller takes victory. His first for the season. and Louis Schreiber, second place.
Great stuff, really good stuff. Couldn't quite do it. Jastrzębski coming out of the last corner now, and there is Percy behind him. So in the end, that was a close finish too.
3 wins from 3 starts in the Blue Marble Radical Cup Series for young Danny Jastrzębski. And what an outstanding weekend that Wisco Racing driver has had. The number 19 of Nick Persing, another podium for him. And I tell you what a great debut he's given the brand new SR3 XXR, flowing in with no time really for Cameron Racing to really work on the setup, work out the advantages of the new car, and he's given that car a great debut.
What do you think Field did to get the black flag?
I honestly think he was probably just a little bit short on his pit stop.
Okay. That's a shame.
It's easy, you know, to get anxious. We said it's like an eternity in pit lane. It's an eternity as you're holding there, and I just think that he probably got a bit quick to exit pit lane.
Who won the Battle of the Bacons?
Well, I think it's
Junior did.
I think it might be that man there. I'm just trying to bring up timing and scoring. And of course, it's not playing ball at the moment. Across the line, the number 99 goes. But I think you're right. I think.
Yeah, I've got Seth. Well, I've got Seth ahead of Jace, so that's interesting. But that may not be right. So let's see what you have.
I think I've got Jace ahead of Seth.
Well, we'll soon find out. The official results will come up in a moment. And great racing from the Radicals. My thanks again to Tom Drewer for coming with us. He'll go down and do the podium and go and celebrate with them. I came to the back of the podium yesterday. It looked like a really good time down there. Alan Miller then. Indy Al Miller takes the win ahead of Louis Schreiber. Then Danny Jastrzębski takes third. Then Nick Persing in fourth, doing double duty this weekend. Greg Gorski. John Field in the end, the man who led this race but got black flag, finishes 6th overall ahead of his opponent Alan Dursey in 7th. Aurora Strauss with an excellent 8th position ahead of Austin Riley, who was right at the sharp end for a while in 1500 Pro, and Mike Ansaldi in 10th. And a little further down now, the tail of the tag will be Jack Yang. It was Chase Bacon, quite rightly, who did beat the dad, and he beat Seth from 12th to 13th, and then Portras 14th. Ken Savage taking 15th place, Dan Decker, Sirocco, Williams, Derucha, and Tweedle. We'll take a short break. My thanks once again to Tom for coming in here. Best of luck for the season, and we'll see you from time to time, I'm sure. As the sun comes out here, we'll take a short break from NOLA. We'll be back with more action from the Speed Tour after this.
Hon, the WeatherTech's here.
WeatherTech is the ultimate protection for your vehicle. Laser measured floor liners, no drill mud flaps, cargo liner, bump step, seat protector, and cup phone.
What about my car?
WeatherTech.
That bush is really coming along.
Hi, Carla. What are you up to?
Oh, I just spent the whole morning having a little battery-powered fun.
I can see that.
This thing is powerful.
Hey, honey. I was just gushing about our new favorite toy.
Let me tell you, the battery life on this thing, you wouldn't believe it. Sometimes we need a little extra push to get there. Sometimes, hey, I let it do all the work for me.
And it has so many different settings. All right, Joel. Ready to go again?
You should join us sometime.
I've got to get me